Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement with Chris Mcintire. Mcintire Retirement Services, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your game plan for retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for our financial, our investment, and our retirement futures. He is president and founder of Mcintire Retirement Services. Chris Mcintire here with us, always helping to uncomplicate the financial world, answering the difficult questions. Chris, we appreciate your guidance and perspective on our financial lives and progress.
Hey, Peter, good to be with everybody here and happy to help.
Well, we are going to address one of the biggest questions that I think are on the minds of savers and investors, Chris, and that's how much do I need to retire? And I have seen this question time and time again in different forms and different fashions, worded a little differently, but basically, how much does it take to fund a confident retirement is the gist of the question. And I think this is one of those things where, Chris, that answer is essentially going to be different for every person.
Certainly is. Reminds me of a meeting I had with some prospective clients here just this week, Peter. And, that was their question. It's like, look, we've just been blindly throwing money into our 401ks for 30 years, but we don't know if this is going to be enough to make ends meet. We're just not numbers people. So, we help them break down those answers and look at, how much money are they going to be getting from Social Security? Will they do pensions in the traditional form where you get a monthly check, or will they do rollovers, put those into their IRAs and then have to create their own monthly check, if you will? So you're right. Those answers are different for everybody, depending on where they worked, how much they save for retirement, how much income they're going to need, what are their Social Security benefits going to be, and how much debt are they carrying into retirement with mortgage, car payments, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the paycheck goes away when we retire. The expenses don't. So one thing for certain is that the income is going to have to come from somewhere, Chris. And I know that you spend a lot of time with your clients there at Mcintire Retirement Services, specifically helping to structure a written retirement income plan. It seems to be a piece, a component of the planning process that far too many of us are missing. And perhaps that's why this is such a common question. But ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to get an answer to this question, make sure that you have appropriately addressed and satisfied that big question of how much do I need to retire? How much is it going to take? That's part of the planning process there at Mcintire Retirement Services. And Chris does offer a complimentary review and retirement planning strategy session, including the construction, the design, and if you choose to take the step, the implementation of a written retirement income plan to answer and address this question. All you need to do to take advantage, pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, you touched on several of the various sources of income, weaving those all together, bringing them together comprehensively so that they work in tandem and in combination is really the basis of that written retirement income plan.
It certainly is. And, if you look at today's environment, Peter, somebody that retired, just to use a big whole number, with $1 million, with the stock and bond market performance, they might only have 800,000 now. So, you do need to have a cushion in there for when things like this happen. And, inflation running at basically a 40-year high, and, Russia-Ukraine war, gas prices high. It's a challenging environment right now. And I think I try to help provide people comfort in saying that, look, 5 years ago or 3 years ago, we couldn't use a lot of bond portfolios to generate income. We weren't getting a lot of the interest. And, that may actually benefit people here down the road as bonds will be coming out at higher coupon or interest rates. And for investors, that might be easier to create some of that income strategy. Now, by the time we get from here to there, you got to be able to deal with this volatility. And that's where having, a couple of different alternative plans is certainly in your best interest.
Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, depending on conditions. You put the plan together, Chris, but always have to be able and willing to sort of maneuver and adjust for conditions in the world around us, in the market, and in the economy.
Yeah. And, a good example of something like that would be somebody that is, say, 63 years old and didn't plan on taking Social Security, wanted to live off of their investments, take Social Security down the road where they get more income out of it. Well, now with their investment portfolio taking a hit with stock and bond prices this year, maybe they should take Social Security now, take pressure off of the portfolio during this crazy time of volatility. So again, that's having that, well, here was plan A. Plan A didn't plan out the way we wanted it to. So plan B, we start Social Security earlier. We take pressure off of the investment portfolio for part of that income strategy and give the growth a chance to recover.
Now, that decision on Social Security, Chris, that is not one that should be taken lightly. That one needs to really be thought through. I know that's a specific part of your planning process, is helping people make that decision on the timing and the method for claiming and collecting Social Security, making sure that we're making it as optimal a decision as possible there.
Absolutely. We've got a real nice software program that we can, show people in real time, changing from year to year and what that looks like versus the maximum strategy. And the maximum strategy is typically what you're going to get the most out of, depending on how long you're projected to live, which none of us really know. But, you have to build in illustration. So a lot of times that's somebody taking it at age 70 if they're going to live to 90. But not many people, have the resources to wait until age 70 to take Social Security either. So, that's where everybody's options are different. It doesn't mean they're right or wrong. Those are the best strategies you're going to deal with in the moment that you have to make some of those decisions. So, so many people look at this as, if I do it this way, it's wrong. If I do it this way, it's right. None of us know when we're going to pass away. So, some of those answers aren't that clear cut by any stretch. And, stock market disappoints people at times. Bond markets disappoint people at times. It's what they do over the course of an economic cycle.
Well, again, if you would like to construct that plan, if you would like to take a look at all of the options for your Social Security, maximize that important piece, that alone can make a swing, a difference of several hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of retirement and your lifetime. So definitely worth just a little bit of time on the front side to make sure you're making a well thought through and informed decision there. And Chris Mcintire has the tools, has the software, has the calculators to help make sure that you understand how that's going to work for you and your benefit into and throughout retirement. Pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, you mentioned a 6-letter, 4-letter word of the financial world. And it's a little bit of what I think is kind of a lost art, something that we used to do. And because of the ease of modern technology, budgeting seems to be one of those forgotten art forms that people just don't do as much of anymore. Maybe it's because of the ease and convenience of technology. Maybe it's just because we have been lucky or hardworking or blessed enough to make an income that exceeds our expenses. But budgeting, when we leave the paycheck behind and we only have so much money, we have a finite lump sum, an unknown amount of time that we're going to need to make it last through retirement, budgeting once again becomes one of the top priorities in successful planning.
It sure does. And I think what we look at this in this generation of retirees is, hey, you got a husband and a wife with both, professional careers, and maybe making a couple $100,000 a year combined, or even $150,000 a year. When they go to retire, they're typically not going to have that kind of income to be able to generate. So if you understand what your budget is, and my wife and I just had this conversation at breakfast the other day, she said, we spend a lot of money in the summer months. We have a boat, and we've spent thousands of dollars on gasoline on the boat, which is an acronym for bring out another 1,000. And, but we enjoy ourselves, and it's part of, the sacrifice of what we do. But, and she had said, she was watching something on one of the business channels that said, if you use a debit card versus a credit card, because a debit card, you're actually paying cash for it and it's coming out of your account as you're spending it, where a credit card is, hey, you can pile on the debt and not worry about it, for 30 days down the road. And that was a very good analogy. That might help people budget who are just used to being, let's just say free spenders, for lack of a better word, to better understand really what they're doing. And I know some credit card companies will break it down as to where you're spending your dollars and not just a simple statement. So, I think there's some new technology out there to help people understand, are you spending discretionary money or kind of buying the consumer staples that you have to get through a month? And knowing that well ahead of your retirement is a key component to, some long-term success. You could certainly make that argument.
We could dig into that a little bit more in our differentiation these days of wants versus needs. I think a lot of people have wants and sort of consider them needs. And because of the availability, Chris, of credit, we can actually buy that item or possess that item before we can actually afford to pay for whatever that item is. How important is it to eliminate debts to help the budget in retirement to have that income plan work?
Oh, the less debt you go into, obviously, the easier it makes things happen, because, a lot of today's retirees are helping children and grandchildren with, financial struggles and whatnot. So if you're retiring without, a $1,500 a month mortgage payment, a $600 a month car payment, and maybe two of those, boy, that certainly makes it a lot easier to satisfy those daily living expenses. And, who knows where we're going here with the economy. We've got some challenges. Energy prices are going to be high. Food prices are going to be high. Part of this whole, volatile world that we live in right now. Probably some of the food pieces are going to come into play here as we get towards fall, and with the Russia-Ukraine war, driving up prices. Are people going to spend on what they have to spend on, not what they want to spend on? So needs and wants, I guess, understanding where you're spending your dollar on something you want or something you need.
Well, again, if you need any help in constructing that budget, getting a better handle on your finances, reviewing and evaluating the investment portfolio and how that is going to work to generate income for you in retirement, ultimately answering that quintessential question, how much do I need to retire? That's done through the planning process there at Mcintire Retirement Services. Give them a call for a complimentary review, evaluation, and retirement planning strategy session, or just a simple conversation and a few questions over the phone. Chris, happy to answer those questions directly for you. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, I think that when it comes to our investments, a lot of the conversation oftentimes centers around finding the best fund with the best rate of return. And I have heard you have this conversation about figuring out retirement, how much is needed for retirement a few times, and you approach it from a different perspective. You've used the term income planning, very different than investment rate of return, and you've also used the term income gap. I feel like this is a much more mathematical approach to figuring out an answer to this question.
Sure, Peter, and thanks for letting me elaborate on that. So, and again, we'll just use a big number here, but it just helps us break things down. So let's say somebody's got, let's just use $1 million to break down an even number, and they need to generate, $80,000 a year, for their retirement income. Maybe they get $2,000 a month from Social Security, $24,000 a year. They need to make up $56,000. In that income gap, if you will. And let's just assume, maybe the wife is still working, or the wife is going to retire a little bit down the road, and she may add an additional Social Security benefit to that, and that'll cut into that income gap as well. But on $1 million, if you need $56,000, you've got to generate 5.6%, of return just to break even on that. And can be an incredible challenge in today's environment of high inflation numbers and low stock valuations and bond prices being depressed. I mean, it can be disheartening. So understanding where that income gap is, how hard do you need your investments to work? in your retirement. Knowing that well ahead of time is certainly a key component. We've got, we're working with a number of different folks right now that have retired within the last 6 months or are going to retire in the next 6 months. And, it's an emotional time because, their portfolios have taken a hit, whether they're conservative investors or aggressive investors in today's world of stock and bond volatility. It's a challenge. Our heart goes out to people. It's what stock and bond markets do through an economic cycle. And you have to be conditioned to weather some of these storms and add another alternative strategy versus throw money at the market and hope it all works out. So that's why we develop an income plan and also investment plans as well. And sometimes those two are set up to complement one another, not necessarily compete with one another.
Chris, I heard a story, an analogy that kind of illustrated the problematic nature of focusing on rates of return when we're looking at our portfolio and income. And the story was, hey, we're on a safari together. I'm your tour guide on the safari. And part of the safari is we've got to cross this river. That's one of the adventure parts of the safari here is we've got to get across this river. And before we get into making that crossing, I tell you, hey, Chris, don't worry. The average depth of this river is only about a foot. And while that sounds a little reassuring, it's not the average depth that I'm really worried about. It's what is the depth in the deepest part that is going to be of concern. And I think that people tend to focus on this mythical average rate of return and don't wonder, well, what's the deepest part of the river going to get to? When we only focus on that average, we're missing maybe what is the most important factor, Chris?
Yeah, that's a great analogy that you make there, Peter, is it is the unknown. How deep is that? How bad can it get? How well do I need to learn how to swim to get to the other side to where the averages will help me get across? And, many folks, if we turn the clock back 18 months, 24 months, I know we went through the COVID crisis there, but, the market's recovered quite nicely is, people get greedy when things are going well, and it is a fundamental, issue that you have to deal with on, when do you make some adjustments and some changes when things are good or here after a 20% correction? Ideally you want to do that ahead of time. And, sometimes things happen, markets can correct, 20% is more of a bear market, 10% is a correction, that's an easy one to digest. What we're going through right now is certainly is a gut check for a lot of folks that were getting ready to retire and had been playing 100% stocks. And now all of a sudden they're down 20, 25%, the Amazons of the world, the Microsofts, some of these big companies that created a lot of wealth for investors like you and I and everybody listening to the show today have, the page, we're on the other, we got to turn the other cheek right now because we've taken it on the chin in a lot of respects. So, creating other alternative strategies if this growth bucket doesn't work out, is your income bucket set up to do the job that the growth bucket was doing and can't do right now?
Now, not to say that there's no place for those kind of equities, those companies, those positions in a growth-oriented portfolio, Chris. But that growth-oriented portfolio probably does not represent the foundation that we want to set up in stability and security and dependability to provide confidence in retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. We are an independent firm with a fiduciary responsibility. And so we aren't closed-minded. We want to look at what is best, truly best for the clients. What's good? What are the alternatives for a very conservative-minded client? What are the alternatives for a very aggressive-minded client? Because, we deal with, everybody's got different risk tolerances. If the market's going up, if the market's up 20%, nobody's wanting to adopt conservative strategies right now. That's just the emotion, the greed behavior that takes over. Our job is to help educate folks to say, look, you're not missing out on all of the upside. It's the downside that we want to help you protect. And, you do that when things are good, typically not when things are off kilter, so to speak. And, But again, lessons learned the hard way. And, nobody knows where the bottom of all of this is going to be out. This is a pretty big economic shakeout. Let's be honest, inflation's at a 40-year high. We've had the worst stock market performance in the last 30 years anyway. So, the current administration's, managing a number of different crises, and confidence is one of those.
Well, again, if you would like to build that plan, have more confidence that the plan will survive and provide you with what you need from your money, from your portfolio in good or bad economic conditions and throughout the market cycles that we are sure to face into our financial future, pick up the phone, give Mcintire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. So circling back to our quintessential question, Chris, how do I know if I'm ready to retire? How much is enough? Asking this in a couple of different ways. We have talked about lump sums. We have talked about that $1 million retirement portfolio. Is a lump sum, some arbitrary amount of dollars, ever going to truly indicate if we are ready and prepared for retirement?
In all likelihood, it is not, because a lot of those cases, that money is not guaranteed contractually to supply you with an income for as long as you're alive, regardless of what happens to the economy. And yes, thankfully, there are companies that will do a contractual guarantee that have to prove that they have money in reserves under basically any circumstances to fulfill the promises they have. And those are insurance companies that offer life insurance, annuities. An annuity is the only thing on planet Earth that will give you a paycheck for as long as you're going to live. And, the nice thing here is in the rising interest rate environments, those payouts are getting better. Their earnings potential are getting better. There are a number of different types of annuities. We've done different programs here before. We're not going to have time to break all of that down, but keep listening to the show. We talk about them. In our practice, we typically use the safe side of annuities, which would be the fixed annuity or the fixed index annuity for income gaps. Sometimes it's just a plain, replacement of a certificate of deposit. Sometimes we're really looking for a strategy to give an income for a husband and a wife that has the potential to increase over the course of their lifetimes as well, but also provide a safe money alternative than stocks and bonds, if you will.
Well, I want to circle back and maybe dive a little deeper in a comparison between growth and opportunity versus certainty and guarantees in that retirement income plan in just a moment. But Chris, another way that people think about being ready to retire, and I want to ask this question first, is an arbitrary age. When I get to 62, when I get to 65, when I get to 67, is that a way that is ever going to truly indicate if we are financially prepared for retirement?
No, not necessarily, because, I deal with folks that have right now want to retire at age 60 and live life while they're healthy. They may not have a lot of longevity on their side, but still none of us know with modern medicine advances, versus somebody who wants to work until age 70. Take me, for example, I'm self-employed, I kind of have a little more control. Why would I want to retire? We make a fair amount of money. I get social activity, I get mental activity, to help keep me sharp and healthy and all those other attributes. There's no finite dollar amount. A lot of people do not want to reverse their lifestyle when they go into retirement and sit on the front porch, for example, especially today's baby boom generation, man. They want to go around the world, see the sights. They've been locked in place for 2 years. They want to get out. That's why inflation is so high. People really don't care what it costs. We're going to go out and on vacation. We're going to go fly airplanes and whatnot. Look at what's going on in the airline industry. So, some of this is just a lot of demand right now, regardless of the cost, because they've been shut in and they got money.
Yeah. A much more active generation of retirees. And again, to support that activity, we're going to need to have a plan, sustainable durable, dependable, reliable for generating the income that we need to cover expenses. That's the equation that will help you have retirement success and confidence. Chris Mcintire has helped formulate that plan for savers and investors across Northwestern Ohio, for workers, for retirees, for pre-retirees. If you would like to have that plan, double check the risks that you're taking, the fees that you're paying, the taxes that you may be liable for, and bring it all together into a written plan for generating retirement income, pick up the phone and give Mcintire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. All right, Chris, so you have differentiated and as a fiduciary advisor have access to the spectrum of the financial world, but we've talked about portfolios and tools that are geared for growth and opportunity. We've talked about tools that are specifically designed for contractual guarantees for lifetime income. You've talked about this in another form on previous shows, and that is paychecks and playchecks. Where do these two coincide, and how do we work that part into figuring out our retirement income, budget, expenses, and spending?
Yeah, Peter, and I think we'll pay credence to our friend Tom Hegna, who has written a book called Paychecks to Playchecks, creating that income and, for what you're going to need in retirement and extra amounts of income. And, we belong to a number of different types of organizations where we get access and hear these folks talk and give us, confidence in what we do. And so, paychecks is hey, I'm working, I got money coming in. The playchecks is the extra money that's coming in that we can do with what we want. And, in generating those types of income contractually guaranteed through the good times, through the bad times, for as long as you're alive, continue on for your spouse. Our clients right now that are the least emotionally involved in the economic climate right now are those that have guaranteed income coming in, not those with the biggest portfolio. Those with the biggest guaranteed income coming in are have the most peace of mind right now. Why wouldn't you want to be one of them?
Satisfaction in retirement comes from that confidence in quality of life, and the dependability of the income streams is what provides for that, being able to cover your expenses with certainty. And if you'd like to structure that plan, if you'd like to take a look at your holdings, your investments, your retirement accounts, and see what can be done to help structure that plan, to get a written plan for retirement income, pick up the phone, give Chris Mcintire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. The great irony in the financial world, Chris, we've been told that we have to take more risk in order to get more reward and more return and more growth. But in fact, what you have talked about, what we have found, and what we have had conversations about on this program is that oftentimes by reducing the amount of risk, less is more, we can actually generate a higher, more certain, more confident income in retirement by removing risk from the portfolio. Seems counterintuitive, but science and studies have shown and proven this to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had a 50-50 portfolio of stocks and bonds right now, you're in better shape than 100% portfolio in the NASDAQ index, for example, and then, so the recovery doesn't need to be as much. And especially when money's coming out of it the other direction, it's those large drawdowns that you want to mitigate. And, sometimes the tortoise beats the hare, depending on what measurement of this economic cycle that you want to cherry pick, for example. But, there are a lot of folks that say, look, I want a consistent 5 to 7%. I don't care about the 20% one year and the minus 20 the next year. I want consistency. And again, in retirement, you do need that consistency to provide that, to generate that type of income where, hey, I'm looking for dividends versus the stock price going up. I want the consistency of the payout that's coming out to me.
Well, again, if you would like to construct that written plan for your retirement, to optimize your outlook into and throughout retirement, to take a look at the risks that you're taking, the fees that you're paying, the taxes that you may be liable for, your investment accounts, your retirement accounts, how they work together cohesively to generate the income that you need into and throughout retirement, pick up the phone and give Chris Mcintire a call, a quick conversation, a few questions on the phone, and then a complimentary detailed forensic financial analysis, review, evaluation, and the construction of a written retirement income plan. No cost, no obligation. Similar reviews and services can go upwards of several thousands of dollars. Chris Mcintire makes this available to you with no cost for being a radio show listener, podcast viewer. Just give a call to Mcintire Retirement Services, Northwestern Ohio, your resource at 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, always a pleasure. We appreciate your time, perspective, the information that you share here for workers, savers, and proactive planners across Northwestern Ohio on your game plan for retirement.
Well, thanks, Peter. My pleasure to be here with everybody. Stay safe out there. We still deal a lot with COVID right now, so do what you can to protect yourselves, and appreciate you listening to the show this weekend. Take care.
Visit McIntyreRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational
subscribe.
purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Indexed or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.